This is the Corsair iCUE Link Titan 360 RX RGB AIO. Yes, that's the whole damn name written on the box. I came into this review fully prepared to make a ton of jokes about this thing, about Corsair needlessly taking a perfectly fine poor little AIO, and I'm talking about the Nautilus by the way, and just proprietarying the shit out of it. Unfortunately, it didn't quite turn out the way that I thought it would, but before we get to the things I surprisingly enjoyed about this Titan AIO, let's just start at the beginning. The Titan 360 RX comes inside the usual Corsair level of packaging, a neat little box filled to the brink with an unnecessary amount of individual paper bags. Like, guys, I do know that having paper bags is like kind of better than plastic bags, but for the love of God, just take like a single one. Just turn it down a notch. Except for the AIO itself and everything what's iCUE related, we will also find the installation hardware for all nowadays relevant sockets. Now, before we go any further on of anything performance related or product related, let's talk iCUE. This is still an iCUE powered cooler and there is no iCUE for that kind of stuff. No, I'm kidding, but proprietary can be a horrible experience, but iCUE is very far from that, or not. It is not that high on the list of like painful proprietary experiences. Included with the cooler, we will get the iCUE controller, the identical one you will get with basically anything iCUE related. It's powered using 6 pins from an 8+2 PCIe power connector, and we get an internal USB 2.0 to control the thing, and especially because this is an AIO, we will get a single pin plug from a fan header. Because in order to prevent any sort of motherboard error messages due to like it not having or it not being able to control any cooler of any sorts, because iCUE does that, that's why we have this one. And this one has to be connected to the CPU fan header. It doesn't do anything, it's actually just like the single tacho signal, so basically it's just telling the motherboard how quickly something is spinning so that the other party doesn't get an aneurysm. Not always necessary, some motherboards do not even care about that anymore, but just connect it and you will always be safe. From there we need to get the cooler connected to iCUE. That's where 2 of these 3 cables come into play. And on that note, kudos to Corsair for including 3 instead of just 2, which are necessary, and we got 3, so in case you wanna, for example, daisy chain this with an entire other row of fans, you can do it. You have the necessary cables, you can push-pull it, no need to buy extra cables. Anyway, the first thing that needs to be connected is the pump, and the other one is the fan. And here it doesn't really matter which one, each of them is connected with the other one, so be it the first or the last one, iCUE doesn't care, all the fans are iCUE'd with each other. And please ignore for now this USB Type-C connector on the Waterblock-Pump combo. We will get to that sucker later. From here we will need to install the entire AIO onto the chip, or even like before connecting. Yeah, do that before connecting anything, but yeah. On Intel we need to take the provided backplate and shove it behind the motherboard. Yeah, that's kinda it, that was quick. In case you're on AMD, we'll first need to take off the provided pretension brackets, and on the Waterblock-Pump combo, you will need to rip off the pre-installed Intel mounting brackets and replace them with the AMD ones. From there on both sockets, no need for thermal paste as there is already some on the block, so just slap the thing on the chip and screw it down using an X pattern. In case I won't be able to express myself appropriately to the situation, I do not like this mounting mechanic. On both AMD and Intel there is literally nothing preventing you from either mounting the entire thing tilted as hell, or just God forbid tighten like a single screw all the way down and then just yeah, good luck getting the other one in. I just prefer mounting mechanics where you first install something onto the board, something that has, let's say, a measured distance to the chip, where it's always right, and then you mount the AIO onto that. Not only does it feel way safer than doing it this way, but in my experience it also tends to perform better. Not to say that something like this doesn't perform, that's not what I'm saying, but I get the feeling that having this can lead to way more fuck-ups than the other way around. I am also not saying that you can kill your chip with something like this. All the screws do have a point where they become thicker, thus no more thread, thus harakiri protection, but still, bad job, Corsair. Every other method just feels bad. And with that out of the way, let's talk about the better things. Controlling the AIO is quite pleasant. Once you download iCUE and infect your PC, you will be able to start playing around. You can set every fan or the entire block to one of the presets or just create your own. Basically the same thing that your motherboard would be doing, just like with a better looking interface. The pump is a little bit different though, because here you are locked into Corsair's presets, but I have to say extreme is like basically all the time 90% fan speed, or pump speed in this case, by default, and then just jumping to 100 as soon as something happens. Like it's pretty damn close to 100. RGB is the same thing, the usual iCUE setup. You can set up a lot of things independently or group them together or light up different parts of this AIO in different ways. Speaking of which, the fans on the Titan are Corsair's in-house made RX 120, high performance RX 120 RGB fans. They are spinning at up to 2100 RPM, push up to 73.5 CFM and up to 4.33 mm of H2O. And compared to the Nautilus we reviewed like a month ago, they will be the main driver for any performance difference that we will find today. And we will do that. Anyway, they come double loaded with RGB. It's just coming from the same source. The center is lighting up and has this kind of nice looking Corsair branded thing on the middle, which conveniently is also hiding away any potentially visible LEDs. And on two of the edges, we'll find a non-branded milky acrylic piece on one end and a Corsair branded one on the other. These things here do stand out a bit. Here I don't have any, here I have one. I think you can even see that now in A-roll. Here we got one. Here we don't. But you are always free to just remove them, which will give you this look. And no, the look doesn't look like something is missing or that you ripped something else. It's just a different design. You may like it or you don't, that's your thing, but you can always switch the branded ones. If you, for example, install it in the top of the PC and you have the tubes towards the back, you will see Corsair. If you don't want to see Corsair, but you want to have the piece of plastic there, you can take the one from the other side. You can do whatever the hell you want. The other major difference to the Nautilus would be the Waterblock-Pump combo, or just the combo part of it, because as far as I can tell, the cold plate is just identical, a 56 by 56 mm copper block, and as far as the stats on the website go, it seems like it's exactly the same pump. No, the difference is the RGB implementation and capabilities, for that matter. We still got the RGB shining through this magnetically attached plate with a Corsair logo in the center, which, by the way, I still believe looks incredibly cool. Like, I think it's really cool. And it can be rotated to all four orientations. But the RGB part becomes bigger as we now got more RGB shining through the sides of the block as well. Overall, I love it. I think it looks cool. I like the shadowy, milky acrylic stuff going around. That's just my taste. Yours might differ. All fine and well. The thing is just that this thing can potentially do a heck of a lot more. Corsair does briefly go over this on their website. It's called CapSwap, but I think they do miss the train by a bit by not specifically putting buttons there with links to the different caps, because you can get 4 different versions of this cap. One looks just a little bit different. The other one got a fan for VRM and RAM, and the last one is the one with the screen, the one that is briefly shown in the introduction video. And just to pedal back like 5 minutes, that's also where that USB-C connector on the block comes into play. That's apparently the screen needs that. Now, feature-wise, I think that's brilliant. You want a fan? Get a fan. Want a screen? Get a screen. Pay for the screen. Don't want anything? Just get the AIO. Everything is optional. It's not forced. I think it's great. I just believe Corsair should have added the cap swaps, the different models, to the accessories tab on the AIO itself, because it's just way too hard to find them. That said, I do not have any of them, so I won't be able to show you how the entire thing looks in the end, but what I can show you is how much Corsair lied when it comes to removing the cap, because it's everything but easy. This is a big ass lie. They tell you to just pull on the cap. That thing will break before coming off. What you actually need to do is push at the top and bottom, if you got the tube on the right side, because there are hooks. Hooks! These need to be pressed in before it comes off. Fix this. I was sitting there for like 20 minutes to trying to get that damn cap off. I was already under the impression that I got some other AIO and that the cap swap feature doesn't exist on mine. And these hooks, plastic hooks, yeah, it's like taking off a piece inside of a car. The overview for this video must already be like 10 minutes long, so let's quickly finish the rest and then finally jump to the benchmarks. The tubes are 450mm long, nicely braided, adjustable at the Waterblock-Pump combo, and the connector on the block end just looks kind of cool. It has a cool pattern. The red is standard sized, nothing to add here. The overhang isn't too much, a little bit of Corsair branding, and I've counted about 19 FPI. And with that, let's finally talk if iCUE-ifying stuff can actually make it perform better. We first benchmarked the Titan 360 RX on top of our 3900K running 3 presets, 120, 250 and 320 watts. For every load we start off at full speed and then we slowly lower the fan speed 10% steps whilst noting down the noise and performance to create a noise to performance curve. Here I need to add this time that I wasn't able to manually keep the pump at 100% all the time. Unfortunately, Corsair or the iCUE system just doesn't allow me to do that, and I just had to use the pump with that extreme preset. It's unfortunate, it's a pain in the ass, and if this somehow now paints a worse picture, or the performance will paint a worse picture for the AIO, it's what it is, and I can't make it perform better. Corsair blocks that. And if Corsair is not happy with that, they will need to change iCUE. Then, also important, all the controlling stuff has been done on an external PC, so that iCUE cannot hinder performance by itself. And the PC is, by the way, standing there. It's always the same PC. It's like... it's this. It's like a mini PC that I carry around. When hitting the CPU with only 120 watts and making the fans ramp up all the way, the Titan barely noticed that something is happening. At 27.7 degrees C above ambient, it marked the 9th spot overall, so congrats, top 10, but most importantly, the AIO can perform even if nothing is happening. Compared to the theoretically lower tiered Nautilus alternative, we got a 0.7 degrees C difference, which, considering the overall number that we get here, isn't that bad. And unfortunately, it does seem like I have to admit that iCUE-ifying stuff might actually really yield better results sometimes. But let's look at the noise. First of all, it looks good. This is a good line. Granted, some coolers do all kinds of weird stuff at this load, and the EK nucleus is still better, but it's a good line overall. But what I found most interesting is that the Titan's noise to performance ratio across the board looks rather similar to the one created by the Nautilus, just offset to the good part, but the curve overall looks quite similar. The Titan is just a bit better in one or the other direction, depending on if you want to normalize by noise or by performance. But let's finally add some sweat to that workload. At 250 watts running through the socket, the results improved, kinda a lot. Something that we already noticed on the Nautilus, by the way. At 51.5 degrees C above ambient, the Titan now marks the 4th overall spot, outperforming the nucleus, and the distance to the Nautilus has now become 1.5 degrees C. And looking at the overall graph, this is a damn good AIO. It is not the best. We had some that performed better and some that did so at the cost of the human ear, but still, if I go down the list from the top and I filter out everything what's not a 360 or unbearable to listen to, it's kind of the second best. On the noise side, it looks even better now. This time I've added the Galahad 2 Lite, because at this point we just have to compare it to the best of the best. And well, it's not as good as the Galahad, that's one is just still ahead. But for example, the nucleus is now overall worse. It might be slightly better at a very, very specific fan setting, which is like precisely 100% on the nucleus, but as soon as you touch that setting, the Titan takes over and holds on to the second best position that I've seen until now at 250 watts all the way through. Something else I really want to add here, it might be kind of hard to see, but once you get to the very low fan or the lower fan speed, the Titan actually takes the best spot, period. Below about 70% of the Titan's max speed, it actually outperforms the Galahad 2 Lite. Sure, it might be just by a margin of error. I mean, once you go like below that point, every halfway good AIO just merges into this blob here, but still marginally ahead of everything that I know. Coming to everything that my 3900K has to offer. At 320 watts running through the socket and me stopping the test at 110 degrees C on the chip, the Titan kept it at precisely 70 degrees C above ambient, making it keep the theoretically 4th spot on the overall graph. It's just now shared with the Oasis. But again, it's a very, very good result, and the corresponding noise to performance graph looks slightly better even this time around. It is still outperformed by the Galahad 2 Lite in 360, but now the nucleus is behind it all the time. And if we go back to comparing it to the Corsair Nautilus, we still get a slightly better performing AIO, be it measured by noise or by performance. Over on AMD, we benchmark using a 7950X3D where we measure the average clock speed across all cores. And here we do the same 10% steps to get a noise to performance curve. And here we get a slightly different result, but that's kinda, like, I would even say, Corsair's own fault. Coolers which have a built-in offset bracket just perform better, period. Thus, you get things like the light loop, which previously had 0 chances, now it beats it from start to finish, or the Arctic Liquid Freezer 3, which wasn't quite at the same level, but they just destroyed the Titan. Sure, the Titan was able to brute force its way to like roughly the same average clock speed as the Liquid Freezer, but the difference in noise is just gigantic at this point. That said, if we compare it to solely things that do not come with an offset, like Corsair's own Nautilus, we get an overall better noise to performance ratio at the higher end. The only thing that just bugs me here is this part of the graph, where the Nautilus takes over and the Titan falls down in performance slightly faster. And it just doesn't sit quite right with me. And this happens every time, and I don't know, or I think I know why. And I think it's mainly coming from the fact that I cannot brute force the pump to 100% all the time. And I think that's the behavior that happens here. In the end, the pump speed is a curve, and I have no idea what Corsair is exactly using to determine whether or where on the curve we are at the time where the benchmark is doing. And because AMD is like a special case that just tries to stay at that 95 degrees C, it's like 80, what is it, 89 on an X3D chip. I think it's coming from there. This is a damn good AIO. Now, don't get me wrong, I think there are minor flaws, like Corsair is still not printing any type of manual, and they are forcing everybody to come to the logical confusion that an installation manual is hidden under guides. You can do it your way, but it's just my job to tell you that your way is a stupid way. I mean, just print it. And I think Corsair should push more on the CapSwap feature. I think that having it as a possibility is like the coolest thing about this AIO overall, even if I can check it out myself now. But they should push way more into that. But other than these two, I would say, minor flaws, I think it's a great product. Well, it's the second best overall Intel performer I've seen until now, and to my surprise, it was even capable of brute forcing its way up the charts on an X3D chip. Now, granted, if you build on an AMD system, you will just always be better off taking any AIO that has the offset mounting. That's just how it is. I mean, it's still very, very good. It would just be better with the mounting. And I can't even really nag about iCUE in this case. I mean, I will still always prefer to just have the usual motherboard plugs and just not rely on any unnecessary bloatware and a brick in the back of my rig. But at the end of the day, it works great to control it. RGB is okay. You can do whatever you want. RGB is a bit confusing. It's a bit much to do. But especially the fan and pump speed, or the fan in this case, just the fan speed curve, that's like hell of easy to set. And I can't really nag about iCUE here. Now the thing is, it's pricey. On Corsair's own website, it's going for 205 right now in euros, which is expensive. It's an expensive AIO, 65 more than the Nautilus. It's expensive, but it's also good. And I don't want to give Corsair too much credit here, because when it comes to like pricing, Corsair is everything but innocent. But if you look at other brands, like premium brands, like Asus, for example, there are other AIOs with way worse price tags, and even something like NZXT is also a perfect example. Not to say that this is now an affordable AIO just because the other ones are worse. The Nautilus, for example, that would be a affordable AIO considering the performance. You will just have to decide if your need to get into the iCUE universe and the gain in performance, because the Titan is better performing than the Nautilus, if both of these things are worth a $65 upprice. For me, if I were to build my new system with whatever CPU at this point, 285K 9950X, this thing can handle it, and I can recommend it for what it is. It's a pretty goddamn good AIO, it's just on the pricier side. And I mean, it looks cool. You know, the cooler has never looked cooler. Psychologically damaging sentence aside for a minute, I also believe that once you get into the whole Corsair iCUE world, you might also just want to, stay in there, Pair it with a, let's say, a good case, good fans, which are also iCUE, not these. And if you've already forced yourself to have the iCUE controller in the bag because you wanted this AIO, but I think at that point, why not just go all the way through, everything daisy chained using the single cable, make the most out of something that you have already in the case, which of course is determined by the fact if your bank gives you the loan, because iCUE fans are like hella expensive. But okay, this should be everything on this iCUE Link Titan 360 RX RGB. And at this point, a huge thank you to Corsair for sending it over. Oh, on a side note, we have a Discord server, so if you want to join, the link is down below. And we got channel membership, so if you are planning to sell your soul for an RG poop emoji, that's one way to go. But if not, I'm also releasing the content to all members 2 or 3 weeks in advance. Except for the NDA stuff, because I don't want to get sued. Additionally, you can rest assured that the income will not only keep the channel afloat, but will also serve to get help. This sentence alone has made damage. Anyway, thank you for watching, and if you want to keep going, have a look at our take on the Nautilus. Maybe iCUE just isn't your thing, and you don't want to pay it. No, iCUE means less costs, and the performance is actually just slightly behind. It's behind, definitely behind, but it's not that far away. Hope to see you on the next one. Bye-bye.